So a few days ago, I uploaded this short video about how Project Hail Mary is such a good example of an existential movie, and someone left a comment. And I thought, okay, Kyle, I was just trying to make a video about a sad astronaut. What you're asking is pretty big for a YouTube short. But then later, that same comment gave me the idea for this video. So shout out to Kyle because this video is for him and I hope you guys enjoy it too. By the way, I really like when you guys leave a comment on my posts because sometimes you say something or disagree with me or hopefully agree with me, and that gives me ideas, or it's like, yeah, there it is. That's what I want to make a video about. So please keep doing that. Another Wednesday, another video. Professor Mo here. I'm a scientist, so naturally I overanalyze movies and books and paintings and music and whatever that lingers into my mind for far too long. If that's the type of content you're looking for, subscribe to this channel. Okay, back to the topic. So I told you about this comment that was essentially the reason that I'm making this video, because the more I thought about it, the more I thought about Project Hail Mary, and the more I thought about existentialism, and I thought there's more to it, and I dug deeper, and I figured it's a good idea to make a long form video, especially because it's about a weird little movie genre that I really like. People call it the sad astronaut genre. You know the movie. There's an astronaut millions of miles away. Let me put these down. Yeah, so there's an astronaut millions of miles away from Earth, and something suddenly, terribly goes wrong. Either the communication is broken down or it takes hours. So they just have too much time to think about everything. Everything.
Toys can see everything.
And I think there's a reason that space works so well for that type of movies. Space is big. On Earth, you can be in your apartment and feel lonely. Stare at the wall of your bedroom and think that you're lonely, but realistically, there are hundreds of people not very far away from you, even in your block. But yeah, ignore that. Yeah, sorry about that. But in space, there might be literally no one around you. So loneliness, it becomes more than just a feeling. It's like physical, you know. You look out the window and there's nothing there, and it's the same for millions of miles. And that's where these stories and movies get interesting. Because after a while, that spaceship becomes this capsule that's all there is to this sad astronaut. Everything in that capsule, in that spaceship, becomes so real. And that's all of their world. There's nowhere to go, no distractions, no, sorry, I missed your email. It's just you and a bunch of buttons and a lot of chairs, I assume. That's how the spaceships look like in my mind. And you have a lot of time to think about everything. It's like endless meditation. Some people might start to think that they wanted to talk to their dad more often. That's essentially Ad Astra. Or Interstellar does the same thing, kind of, but with time this time. Cooper goes on an adventure and thinks that after a while he will be back, but really, what there is left for him is just a few video messages of how his family members are growing old and he's not there to experience it with them. That's a pretty cruel idea. Then you have something like The Martian, which is which is less cruel. You have this astronaut that plants, he does gardening, he listens to terrible music, and he's a little bit less depressing. I think he even won the Golden Globe for the comedy category. But underneath all of that, it's the same basic question. There's a human being that doesn't want to disappear. So, in the end, the sad astronaut genre is not really about space. It's about the astronaut if you remember every familiar thing from around him. Every familiar thing. I mean, you're floating around Jupiter, so your social status don't matter, your money don't matter, I don't know, your high school don't matter. None of this really matter. You're left with some basic questions. Like, who do you care about? What is your purpose? Why do you want to go home? And if you somehow do end up going home, who do you want to go home for? Maybe I think that's why we send sad people into space. And then there's Project Hail Mary. With Project Hail Mary, I think, can be one of the purest examples of the sad astronaut genre. You have Ryland Grace, who wakes up alone in a spaceship. He doesn't know who he is, he doesn't remember his name, he doesn't remember his purpose, and why he is even there. You have this floating astronaut millions of miles away from Earth that is just trying to remember his name. But that is essentially what makes this movie so existential. There's a famous quote from Jean Paul Sartre which says, "Existence precedes essence." Basically, you exist first, the meaning comes later. So imagine if a person wants to make a knife, they have an idea for the purpose of this tool. They want to make something that cuts, right? And then they make that thing. They make the knife. But human beings don't have that capacity. Don't have that ability. We find ourselves here, then through a lot of trial and errors, through education, through seeing things, watching, reading, listening, we may find our purpose. We may find what we're supposed to do with life. And that's exactly what happens with Ryland Grace waking up in Project Hail Mary. He first just exists. He just doesn't know his purpose. He cannot pinpoint the reason that he's there. Then there comes these flashes of memories. Then he starts to think, and slowly he realizes his purpose. He realizes that the Earth is in danger, and he is there to save humanity. Also, in parentheses, Ryan Gosling is such a good actor to play this character. He's good in playing those characters that are just lonely, and they don't even try to show that they are lonely. They just stare into space, and you think to yourself, "Oh, this man is going through it all." But there's more to Project Hail Mary than just this simple storyline that I told you. Because after a while, Grace realizes that he didn't even want to be there. He was put there against his will to save humanity. Which pushes us to ask even a much more interesting question. Are you bound or defined by the person who you used to be? Or can you choose to be a different person? Can you change who you are? And that's exactly when Rocky appears. Because at first, Grace's only mission is to find a way to solve the problem with astrophage and save humanity. But then with Rocky, Rocky is just a friend. Because now there's an important question that Grace needs to respond to. Whether he just sticks to the plan and just goes as he had it in mind and forget about every other detour or every other side missions throughout this journey, or should he choose the person he wants to be? You see, there's a little twist in Project Hail Mary. Grace is no hero, at least not yet. Anything, we know that he is there against his will. He becomes a hero after he chooses the type of person he wants to be, and he chooses his friend. Our sad astronaut begins the story by asking a simple question. Simple, but profound. Who am I? What am I doing here? But by the end, those questions don't matter much because he knows who he is, he knows his purpose, and he has chosen the type of person he wants to be. The universe does not give you purpose, you choose your own purpose. Grace chose friendship.